So the objective of this video is to find some user credentials, and that's one of the important vectors to get the foothold. We do this in two steps. First step is to find possible usernames, and this is just the usernames, not the passwords. And then let's say we get a list of 20 usernames that exist in Active Directory. Then we spray a small list of passwords on them, on each one of those, and see if we get any hit. Now we have to be careful because we don't want to lock out any user. So that's why the list has to be small. And this is how it is different than a typical brute force or a dictionary attack, where you have a huge dictionary, maybe thousands and thousands of passwords, and then we simply do a brute force or a dictionary attack on those. So here we are going to have the most common passwords that you can ever find. Something like welcome1, password with $, or the season that's maybe like winter at 25 or summer 2025. So you can be a little creative here, but create a small list of passwords, and then we do this password spray. So in this video, we'll do the step 1 of finding usernames, and we'll do the password spray in the next one. And remember, this is a Active Directory enumeration. So generally how it goes is any new piece of information that we retrieve, we want to repeat the earlier experiments or earlier tests, because now with the new information you might get better results. So initially we are doing this user enumeration while we are anonymous, but once we do find some credential, we would like to do the user enumeration one more time, but this time with the credentials that we have found. So we are authenticated and we have a much better chance of finding users. So let's use the first tool to find some usernames, and that is CrackMapExec or NetExact, the fork of it. Any one of those will do. And so far what we have gathered is we have this list of hosts, and some of those hosts are domain controller, and that we have figured from the port scan that we performed. So if you see the port scan of .10, it shows some typical ports open, that is port 88 is open, and this is going to be our KDC service that is running. And then there is port 636 which is running LDAP SSL, and also 389 which is running LDAP. So all these ports and the services that are running there tell me that this is definitely going to be a domain controller, which is good. So now once we know this information, and also we can gather similar information from the other hosts. So from that I know 10, 11 and 12, these three are going to be the domain controllers. Now based upon this, we can use the CME or NetExact, whichever is your preference, to find some domain users. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm using NetExact, and I would just say NetExact SMB, that's a protocol I'm using, and I'm directing it to the domain controller .10, and I'm just calling -- users. So fetch me some users from there. Okay, so we don't get anything. Let's go ahead and try 11. And we do get some list, which is good, but you can see these are not domain users. These are more like the local users from the machine Winterfell, which is the .11 machine. So that's fine, we still get some information, but these are not domain users over here. However, this is not bad at all. I mean, based upon this information, maybe this could be a stepping stone to get the further information about whatever we can find. And let's go ahead and do the same for 12 as well. In fact, we can do something like this. We can just go ahead and say, give me all the information about this domain or the range, and you will get all the information about this whole network. So primarily we are getting only the local users from this machine. So that's fine, we record this, we note this down in our notes, that we have found these many users. So this is how you use CrackMapExec or NetExact to find users. And one more thing that's interesting is for this particular user, Samuel.Tarley, we can see the description also has the user has the password. So this is a description that has been fetched, and although this looks unreal because how could you have password in the description, this happens sometimes. Some administrators do this mistake of creating a user and then putting vital information like this in the description. People think that description is something that may not be seen, but that's not true. And you can see here the description is visible along with the password. So that's good. We have credential of a local user that's on this machine, and we also note that down so we can mount some further attacks using that. Alright, so the other thing we can do is we can use NetExact to fetch users based upon RID. RID is the relative ID. And let's use the whole subnet and see if we get anything. So here I don't think we are getting any users. So let's try one option with guest as the user, and generally the guest user doesn't have a password, so let's leave it empty. And this may not even be enabled, but let's give it a try. So if we do that, and this time we are getting some users. So these are all the default users. You can see administrator, guest, default account, and so on. So not a lot of useful information as such, but sometimes you might get some users which are the real users created in the system. Alright, so the next tool we are going to use is Curbroot, which is at this repository. So you sync this repository and on your machine just run make all, so it will build the code. And what you would get finally is the binaries like this one, where it is, this one is for AMD 64. You would also have the other ones for Windows and for different processors like ARM, but the one that we will be using is this. And then you specify the command, which is user enumeration, and the domain you specify, which in our case is going to be 7kingdoms.local, and that's something that you would have identified based upon your enumeration so far. And finally you need to specify the user list. So the user list that we would be giving is from this repository, statistically likely usernames, and there are a bunch of lists over here like this one, let's say johnsmith.txt, and you will see there are a bunch of names out here like these ones. So based upon the domain that you have specified, the tool will calculate the full username, as in the domain name, the username at the domain name, and it will try to do something called as pre-auth operation. And if the user does exist, then AD will give some response which will be specific if the user exists in the AD. And if it does not exist, then there will be a different kind of response. So based upon the pre-auth operation, Curbroot will try to figure out whether the user exists or does not exist. So the whole authentication process doesn't complete, it's just a partial of that whole process. And the other thing about this is there are some users which might be configured for something called as pre-auth not required. And if that is the case, then you might even get the hash, NTLM hash for those users. So let's try this out. Alright, so I'm in the directory where I have synced the repository for this tool, Curbroot. And you can see this is the code here. It's already built, so that's why I have this dist directory. So if I go inside, and these are all the binaries that are built. The one that I'm going to use is not that one, this one, which is AMD 64. So let's go ahead and do it. And before that, one quick thing is, let me just take a look one more time with at what hosts do we have so far. So we have these hosts discovered, and .10 is something that stands out because it's a domain controller. We know that because we did some port scanning before. Okay, so let's go ahead and fire up the command. We are using Curbroot Linux AMD 64, and the command that we are giving is user enum, with the DC being at 10. The domain is 7kingdoms.local, and the word list that we are going to use is from the statistically likely usernames repo, and this is the file that I'm going to use. So if this one doesn't work, it's a good idea to change the word list, try something else, and not give up on the first one or the second one that doesn't work or give much results, right? So let's go ahead and run this command. Let's see what do we get. And you can see it is talking to the port 88, which is KDC service. All right, so no luck here, but that's fine. It happens. Let's go ahead and try the other domain controller, which is 11, and it's north. That's the domain. So let's go ahead with that. All right, we found one user, Jon Snow, and hooray, we found the other one who's not configured for pre-auth. So that's cool. So we can see here Brandon Stark has no pre-auth required, and because of that the tool could retrieve the Curbroot token for that user. We can try to crack it and find the user's password in the clear text. So that's cool. We got some good information out of this, and that's all about this video. We would be doing some password spraying in the next one. So thanks for watching this and hope you liked it. I'll see you in the next one.